Okay. Are we here? It's like my Twitch title is invalid. I wonder why. Let me change that. How's it going? YouTube doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. Let's see if that passes. Okay, it looks like that passes. Nice. All right. So today I want to do the impossible. I'm going to center a div. So I feel like because I'll tutor people in front end stuff, and I feel like there's always this like CSS is like such a pain. And I just want to have a nice stream where I'm sort of just going through the process because it's all a process. Go through a process, and we'll actually, you know what? Let's actually have some fun here. Let's make a site that looks a little bit uh, like a like a Twitter profile or something. Let's have like a feed that's not centered. Google search. Let's do something like this. Something very basic. Back to the basics. Let's see here. So first things first, you have to destroy everything on your laptop. You have to go into your terminal, and then you have to say, you gotta wait for Python to load up in your terminal because you have a shitty computer, and you have to remove everything. Remove recursive force everything on your computer, and then you can start fresh, and then you can just forget that all the demons are trying to get at you, and now you're a fresh new developer. Just kidding. All right. Don't ever run that, by the way, because you're pretty. It is actually a problem. I know it's such a meme, but like, yeah, you will delete everything. All right. So here, let's imagine we're making the front end for Google here, and we're gonna start from scratch because I think most people don't like understand front end mostly because they're using all these different frameworks. They're using Bootstrap, they're using like some React component library, and they're like, I don't know how to center this thing. I keep making this prop say center, and it's not centering. And it's like, just relax. It's okay. It's not actually a big deal. It's actually very simple. And we have things called Flex nowadays that make it very easy. Before you had to like float, you had to maybe use margin auto and all. You could still do stuff like that, but today we're gonna use Flex. We're gonna use Flex, and we're gonna get a div, and we're gonna have our content in here. And so I like to set up classes. Actually, let's actually set this up. I'm not using semantic stuff, by the way. I don't want to. I can do what I want. I'm doing class name because I've been doing so much React. Okay, let's make a header, make a footer, and I'm not gonna make a wrapper. See, this is how you're really coding here. This is how you're really coding. Say content. This is my search site. So actually, I'll say search content, search header. This is because I'm making my own Google right now. That's going to be a lofty challenge. All right, let's center a fucking div. So, and as you notice, because I know there's some backend people that wanted me to do some CSS. As you notice, when I save this, I think it auto updates, but when I save this, nothing changed, right? Because we're just doing the layout. We're just figuring things out. Let's say, imagine you have all this content inside here, and you have to vertically and width horizontally center it. Well, my first thought is because like if I'm given that, it's typically not as clean of a scenario as this. So when I'm like trying to put myself in the right scenario that I can be in a real world situation, I'm gonna try to make it real world situation because real world situation, you're probably gonna have a header. It's gonna complicate some things. You're probably gonna have a footer. So let's actually set up the header and the footer. Let's make it like, why do I keep? All right, let's make this like 80 pixels. Let's give this like a background color of like your mom. No, let's give it a background color like some gray, some dark gray. And then, oh, I just realized I'm not using SaaS. Dang, I use SaaS so much. I love SaaS. I love SaaS so much. That's okay. We were doing bare bones. I think it's like there's so many technologies nowadays that you got to just go back to the basics. All right. So that's it. Hold on a sec. I didn't save that. By the way, when things go wrong, which it already did, you got to open up the dev tools. This is the process, and you got to make sure you're not in the mobile view because that's gonna screw things up. I feel like I should just have a whole thing that's just all. Hold on a sec. This is getting loaded. I feel like I should have a whole stream that's all just figuring out how to figuring out what am I saying? I should have a whole stream that's literally just breaking down the dev tools. I think that would be helpful. Whoa, what's going on here? Oh, this file isn't updating. Is the server not running? Hold on a sec. I'm running this HTTP server. Interesting. I wonder if I have to restart. I mean, it's kind of stupid, but I wonder if I have to restart the server. Oh, it was cached. I was like, why is this not updating? Anyway, all right. So when I was a young coder, I was like, whenever I had to center a div, I was always so fucking confused. Mostly because I feel like I wanted to be elite. I want to be a hacksaw. Doing padding as well. And but I have to clear the cache every time. I think it's because it's HTTP server. But I realized every single time I would like get into front end stuff, I'd always get so confused about the layout. But the thing that really broke through and to the point where I was like, oh, I get it. Yeah. Is when I started to actually learn about the layout engine. So learn about WebKit. Like look at the architecture of WebKit. Look at don't just look at and yeah, you can learn about and I'll talk through you know, the what's it called? I'll talk through Flex and I'll talk through like the cross and the main axis and all that. And that's interesting, but like that's at a different layer. Learn about why things lay out. Learn about why if I do this, if I let's say I had something inside here, if I did this, this is less optimal than if I use the actual class name. You know? Like learn about things like that. I'm not gonna do it today, but I'll do it another day for sure. Box model. Oh, let's talk about the box model for a second. Let's talk about the box model. Thank you for that. Gixin. Oh, is the name still not cool for Twitch? Jesus. Center a damn div. Like, come on. Let's talk about the box model real quick. So everything, when the page gets laid out, everything is in a box. Okay, literally, like it's laid out two-dimensionally, obviously. There's something, every element has something that's a height and a width. That's a box. That's the model of the object. You can look at the box in the dev tools really nice. They for every element here, you have this box layout. As you see here, so let's go to the header. I have this header. You can see it's highlighted right there. They like highlighted in blue. So inside the box is this dimension. It's 1370 by 80, right? So it's 80 height, 1370 width, all that. So the everything. So this kind of looks confusing here, but so this is the content. The way the box. Maybe I should actually draw this out. Let me draw this out. Let me draw this out. So like, I love Sketchpad. So everything, so from your p tags to even things that aren't displayed as blocks, that's where it gets confusing. Everything's in a box, because then you have things that are displayed inline and then inline block. I don't know why they're saying that. Okay, so let's get a box here. Let's get a box. I have a box. Let's say this is my image, my p tag, my div. I didn't fucking close the box, whatever. So everything inside this box is the content. So I have the content right here. I should have not. Okay, you get it. All right. So that's like the text, the whatever, the other elements, the children, essentially. You can get into what children is, but that's the children. So we're talking about, whenever I talk about the box model, by the way, this is what I'm talking about. Every single element on the page is rendered in this box. It's laid out in the box. And it's painted. That's where we get into the CSS side of things, as a box. But you don't see like lines around the box, right? So it's hard to think about it intuitively. So when we talk about padding, we're talking about pushing. Let's imagine there's an imaginary line around the content. You don't see this line. And there might not be any visual indicator of this line, right? But this is all the stuff inside the element. And then let's imagine this line right here is the border. So I'm not going to fucking draw everything out. It's B for border. I'll do it. But I should just type. Why am I not typing? Anyway. All right. So this is the border. So like outlined is a border. So every element is. The space in between the content and the border is the padding. Okay? Pad. I'm not going to do the whole thing. Everything outside the border, pushing away, is the margin. It's the margarine, the butter. Does that make sense? I'm just going to do the whole thing. Why am I like being randomly lazy with this drawing stuff? So everything is outlined like this. So when we talk about the box model, we're talking about how things are laid out on the page. So you have the content, you have the padding. In between the content, if I increase padding, then I'm pushing the content away from the border. When I have the margin, I'm pushing everything outside the box from the outer content. So here I have a little header right here. There's no content. It's from another stream. There's no content. Let's see. So, but if I do add content, like let's say I add something inside this header, that's like, add like a little, maybe I move the H1 inside the header. Let's do that. And I move that inside here. So you see how there's nothing out on the outside there, right? So I can say adding left. So on the left side of the box, let me add 50 pixels. So now the border, now there's space between the border and the padding. Now let's say if I had added margin top 50 pixels. So now you see how that didn't degrade and increase, because I'm now pushing away from whatever's above, which is just the top of the page. So now this box is now laid out like this. So now if I inspect this again and I analyze the box right here, I can look at this box again, and now we have, before it said nothing, now we have padding, now we have margin, and we have an empty border that's nothing. And then here, this represents all the content inside of it. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So let's center a fucking div. So let's say my boss is like, hey, fuck you. And I'm like, okay, I deserve that. But why? He's like, because you don't know how to do it. CSS. You suck at CSS. We don't, it's the economy's bad. Okay. We had all these backends. and we don't have any more front ends because there's not enough front ends to hire. I'm just kidding. That's never going to be a thing. There's always too many front ends because it's easy. So like, but he's like, hey, come on. You gotta get better at CSS. I can't, if you don't send in this div by today, you're fired. Okay. So here's what we got to do. So let's imagine that I need to make a search site. So I need to have a little thing in the center here that's like Google. So I'm going to make a div inside because I want the search content, this greater thing, to spread throughout the whole page. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But for now, we're just going to make sure that we have a greater container. We have one child inside here that's going to have our content. And there's a lot of ways to do this, but I like this one. And this is going to be our search form, which is called the search dash form. We don't have to get fancy. Search dash form. I'm using the block element modifier here. Look it up, block element modifier. So like, by the way, we show outlines without messing. This outline dash red. Oh yeah. Oh, thanks. All right. Let's see. So if we want to have this div inside here sort of be vertically and horizontally centered, the best way, in my opinion, is to use flex. But first, let's actually give it some content. Let's see, class equals, we don't have to give it a class. Let's give it a placeholder. Just like search my fucking website. And then we'll have a button. Actually put this button right next to it. And this button will be like, hello world. We'll just say search. We're not children. Okay, cool. So now I reload this, and then you see it's all the way up here. I need to get in the center. Let's actually give it a title too. Let's give it a title. Title. It's given H2, and we'll say H2 Google Part 2. Okay. And notice how, so I talked about the box a little bit before. Notice how I put all these at the same level. Super important. But the input and the button are next to each other. Well, this one is on its own line. So that's where we get into display and how elements are displayed. And the display is the most important part of the rendering of the page, where the display for some elements is going to default to block and the other is going to default to inline. For now, just see block as it has its own line, and inline, it doesn't have its own line. So there's no carriage. So search my fucking website. This input element is not a block by default. So let's go. Look at the default stylings. Where is it? Yeah, it's by default, it's inline block, which is a combination of them. It's more so how it interacts with other things. That's the only time when you want to use inline. Now you can see the button, inline block. I mean. This is also inline block. Nice. And that's why they're all together. Okay, cool. And then this one is it's also, I believe, width of the container. Okay. Well, that doesn't matter. But okay. So how do I align this? How do I do it? So what I'm going to do as the guy who wants to keep my job is I'm going to give this flex. So you saw how there was a block and there was an inline and there was all that inline block and all that. We're going to change the default for this div, which is a block, from block to flex. So let's first see what happens. Oh, they're all on the same line. Because the way flex works is as soon as you make an element flexed, everything inside that element, I mean, every direct child is now controlled via flex. So it's now controlled based on how you're defining the attributes of this flexed container. So now these are not just their own elements with their own display. They're slaves to the master container, if that makes sense. If you're used to system speak. So here, these are all flex. And so now they're not. So now they're all just in a line. And the default, you can see now right here. So if I go to the default, you see how I overrode this with flex? So the default for, oh, they're not showing it. Yeah, computed. That's what I want to say. Hold on a sec. I want to get all the, yeah, show all. Cool. So here's all the computed styles. Computed is just all the literal styles that are showed that are actually rendering on the page. So I see all these are all the defaults, all the default styles. So I could go to, where is it? Which one am I looking for? Flex direction. So when I applied flex to this, I gave it some default flex styles. Where is it? Flex direction is defaulted to flex direction row. And that's why it's in a row. It's horizontal. And flex grow is 0 and flex shrink is 1, which that doesn't actually matter right now. And thank God float is none. All right, so, and then it's not wrap, which is, by the way, all these things are super valuable, especially you'll see flex grow. I might use flex grow here. Anyway, so here, let's go back to the code. I'm going to change flex direction to column. You see how it's all like spread out? That's because these are now like the display characteristic is different for these now. Because they're being controlled by this. They now more so operate as these blocks that are filling out the container, which I actually don't want. But for now, I'm just going to give this a width just to deal with it. I'll show you how to deal with that in a sec. For now, I'm going to give it a width, and it's still messed up. So actually, let me show you right now how you do that. So I'm going to, for all input type texts, I'm just going to do with, not fit content, my bad. I'm just going to do with oh, you know what? Actually, we should do here. Let me set this width to 100 pixels just to make it specific. Would be better. I did 200. Let's actually make this container 400, and then let's make this 250. I think that'd be more natural. And the button with think auto, God, with fit content. Yeah, fit content. Yeah. I'm also going to give this some padding because I just like giving buttons padding. Sorry, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole here. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole. All right. I'm going to go down a little bit. And then I'm going to give this a padding a 5 and 10 pixels. Sorry, I'm just like, I just can't have it look like shit. All right. Anyway, but we still have a problem. There's no margin. This has to be some form of OCD that I just keep having to add stuff to it. All right. Still need to vertically align and all that. Okay. And horizontally align. So, oh, hold on a sec. My bad. I didn't make one for search content because what we want to do to vertically align this, now that we have the internal thing flexed, and I'll show you how we're going to align that, we're going to make the greater container flex. And we're going to do a few things here. How the fuck did that happen? So I'm keeping my job. That's crazy. Isn't that crazy? It's centered. So what happened here is that I do side by side. So what happened here is that I have the justify content center right here. The justify content center. Oh yeah, I make it flex because I want to have this wrapper now be flexed. Right. So I did some flex on the content here, but I want the wrapper now to be flexed. And this is the only thing inside the content. So now this content is spreading out through the whole container with width 100%. So now it's boom, spread out to all that white space. And the justify content center is now, so here we get into axes. So this is saying on the main axis, maybe I should visually. So when you make something flex, let's go over here. So when you make something flex, let's say you have a box that has two boxes inside, a div that has two little divs inside of it. So by default, it's going to be flex row. So every time you have a flex container, inside the container, there's a main axis, then there's a cross axis. So the default is row. So as you see, they're next to each other. So that's the default. Whenever, this is super important for, like, always remember this. Whenever using justify content center, it's making sure that the main axis, it's aligned on the main axis. And when you use align center, it's aligned on the cross axis, which is the vertical one, the Y, right? But that can get confusing because as we saw here, on this one right here, I have this one as flex direction column. And I just added justify content center, super important point. And guess what? It's not vertically, it's horizontally aligned. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it a line item center. And now it's horizontally aligned. You see, it's a little confusing, but it's like when I flipped, changing the flex direction, I flipped the axes. And now I horizontally centered the one that was flex row with justify content center. And I horizontally centered the one that's flex direction column with align item center with two different things because they're flipped. So now let's vertically align these. The other one doesn't need to be. And this one's going to be aligned. Oh, so I actually need to do this before I do that. So well, there's like a header up there, so it looks a little weird. But so it's like, but you see, it's like the container, it's 100% of the width. Well, actually, we can do some interesting stuff to make this flex one, but let me just explain. So the reason why, so now it's vertically centered on the page because now when I made it height 100%, it bled down to the whole page, 100% of the height of the page. So it actually pushed down the header here. But if I wanted it to stay in this box, right, to stay on the page here, what I could do is I could display flex like that. Did I have a greater container to it? Oh, my bad. Flex direction column. Then, hold on a sec. Right. I can do at 100%. Right. Okay, cool. I was like worried for a second. I was like, why did that work? Why did that not work? So here we actually use the flex grow, and I do the shorthand flex one here. So the search content is now bleeding to the rest of the page, and not like I can't scroll now, and now it's actually horizontally. Let me show you what it looks like. So now it's actually vertically aligned, I mean, because let's go back to styles. Because now I have the header and then I have the search content. And as you see, when I hover over this, the box, it's highlighted over everything. So the body, I made it flex and I gave it a flex direction column so that they're aligned in a column rather than a row. And I gave it 100% height so that it now it automatically bleeds out to the 100% of the page. And then I gave this a search of the search header nothing because it's just being controlled by that. But I gave the search content a flex 1. I gave it display flex because I wanted to do flex on the inside of it. I don't need that. Oh, I do. I'll explain why I need that. Just to make it look good. Only because if we don't, then we have to give this like proper height and width. It doesn't really matter. I don't know why I'm showing that. Okay, that doesn't matter. We just finished the point. So flex 1 is flex. You're automatically filling out to the rest of the container. So search content here is now filling out to the bottom of the container, and then it's flexed. So all of the children in here, which is only 1, is going to have flex on it. And I'm applying justify content center and align item center so that this is horizontally and vertically aligned. This is flex row. There's only one thing in the row. So the main axis is going to be the horizontal line. And that's why justify content works here. This one is flipped. The search form is flipped. And the direction is column. Therefore, I can vertically or horizontally align it with align items. And if I wanted to vertically align it, I would use justify content. Does that make sense? Is it confusing now? That's how you center a fucking div. This matters because you gotta actually know CSS. You gotta actually know CSS. I feel like there's a lack of actual CSS education here in the world. Most of the education is, oh, I'm gonna go get my component library and it'll magically do everything for me. Well, you're gonna get automated. I will automate you if you do that. I promise. And I'm not if you use those technologies, but if you depend on it without knowing the fundamentals. Here we're talking about the fundamentals. That's the only thing that matters, unless you suck. If you're not in the fundamentals, you suck. By definition. So we did it. We centered a div. Look at that. What else can I do here? Let's make this H2 look a little bit better. Our boss is like, this doesn't look beautiful. By the end of the day, you're fucked. Give it some letter spacing. Maybe make the font size a little bit bigger, you know. Give it some color. Or what the fuck am I doing? Let's give this what's like a color? Blue? That's a color, I think. Giving the page some life, you know. See, it has life now. It has a blue fucking color right there. Isn't that amazing? Doesn't that look amazing? It's like the text input sucks. It's like there's no border. There's no border. It's just using the default styling. Like what is this, like 1995? You know, maybe get this like little gray border radius, 10 pixels. 10 pixels. You know, you gotta make your design slight. You know, with the font size, and eventually you'll be like, hey, I'm using a lot of the same styles here for inputs. Let me like actually like make it a class. And then you start being like, oh, I have so many different classes and there's a lot of functionality here actually. So let me like maybe make a mix in for it. Let me get SaaS, let me get less, let me do styled components if I do React, It's like then those things start mattering, you know what I mean? Beginning, you don't even know what the fuck's going on. You gotta grow into that. And then our button sucks. Let's make like a secondary button here. Let's give it like black. Say white for this one. Border radius. You see how fucking easy CSS is? Whenever people say they complain about CSS, I'm like, you don't know the box model. So many people complain about CSS, I'm like, you just don't understand it. Get good. Understand it. Like, did you look it up? Did you look it up? So I'm being an aggressive tutor today. But it's true, you didn't look it up. And it's like in here we have an issue because not an issue, but it's like I'm separating everything by these weird margins. Like I'm adding like the margins to make everything. So typically you don't want to do like you want to have like a spacing variable somewhere around here. We can use CSS variables for it, but like I like SaaS. So like in SaaS you would add like maybe some like font spacing is like a variable. And then all my font spacing or margin or whatever is going to be like 10 pixels, you know. Here we're just we're doing scratch code. How do I tailwind? Get the fuck out of here. Tailwind. Dude, Tailwind's okay. I don't know. When I see Tailwind, I'm like, well, this is annoying. I've done a few contracts where people had Tailwind, and I'm just like, what are you doing? It's like, so how many, like I'm doing too much CSS right now. Like every time I'm using Tailwind, I'm like, I don't want to have to think about any of this. That's all I see in the headlines past year. Yeah. That's how it is. Dude, Tailwind's kind of sucks. I'll be one to say it. If people like it, it might be Stockholm syndrome, something like that. I for me, like I don't. The ideal is like a really good component library, like Bootstrap or something. Bootstrap's okay. But like a really good component library, you have an in-house CSS framework that's like solid, you built up over the years. Those fundamentals are what I need. Yeah, these are the real fundamentals, dude. The box model. Oh yeah, Art, were you here when I went over the box model? Did I close that tab? Dude, you gotta rewind and look at the box. I went over the whole box model, dude. If you don't understand the box model and you don't understand Flex, then you're fucked. Because everything's like the reason why fundamentals matter is because whenever you hit a problem and you just keep hitting the same problem again, that's a pattern. And that pattern is resolved by knowing the fundamentals. Oh, nice. That was useful. Nice. Like fundamentals is how you solve your insanity. Yeah. It's because it's like it's so funny because like there's so many times where I'm like coding and I'm just like, wait, I've like hit this memory issue a million fucking times. That's a me problem. You know what I mean? I've hit this same issue a million times, you know. Like there'll be like something in a yeah, especially if you're doing like a lot of data processing or you're doing like just think of stuff that requires a lot of stack. You'll just hit the same thing over and over again. Sometimes you can just blame the language, like you can just say, "Oh yeah, like Python just sucks." A lot of times you can just blame the language, but there comes a point where you have to be like, "I just don't get it." Because yeah, like Python's when you're working with like Python, you're so many abstractions away from the base of things that it's like, yeah, you might be fundamentally writing a good algorithm, but it's like just not optimized for it, or the tooling isn't. But there comes a point where it's like, is this you? It's like, do you not know what a hash map really is? You know? All right. But you see how like simple this is? Like, it's so funny. Like, 'cause, dude, so many people have issues with CSS. It blows my mind. I'm like, this is the easiest part by far. Because people always like to say, oh, like, yeah, I thought CSS was easy, but like a backend will be like, oh, it's actually fucking the hardest part. Dude, it's actually the easiest part. It is. It's easy because it's just no one ever you know why CSS seems so confusing is because it's so easy that you can do a lot of work without knowing anything. You know what I mean? Like some things are it's a double-edged sword how simple things are because you wind up doing a lot and knowing very little. Python's like that. Sometimes it is better to just not to be in an environment that's hard or that requires more discipline because you just can't fuck up. Like software is filled with a lot. The industry has a lot of lack of discipline because you don't like cut your hand off if you like if you use a machine if a tool wrong. It's like the consequences aren't like there's so little consequences to CSS, you know. Whereas like something like Flex and knowing the box model, see it like this: like if you're learning Python, knowing what a function is comparable to knowing what the box model is when you're doing front end. Think about how few people know what the box model is and how many people do front end. And how many people you have to know a function if you're doing Python, right? Think about how fucking crazy that is. Custom animation stuff seem more it's not difficult. It's more just like, I mean, dude, it's like it's not difficult, it's just more um like to like you don't like not memorize, but it's like for some animations, I feel like the basics are all there, but when you want to make something look literally like something, like there's a site where people have like they it's like a CSS, you upload your CSS animation. I forgot what it's called. But people have crazy stuff on the site. And when I see it, it's more so like, did you just figure it out? You know, it's not even that hard. Like the basic animation functionality of CSS isn't that difficult. It's just, yeah, to make like a three-dimensional thing turn on an axis is a lot of math. Yeah, it was like CodePen, but it was like just for CSS. I totally forgot. Like, what was that? I totally forgot what that was. Huh. But it was really cool. It was like, or no, it wasn't like it was like people upload it and share it, and there's like it was like almost like a Reddit for like CSS animation. It was weird. No, CSS is easy. Yeah, like using like WebGL is like is but the thing is like none of it's like really hard though. It is no, I'm saying that like I can't do like a crazy WebGL thing right now. But a lack of understanding doesn't mean it's hard though. It just takes more time to do that. And you have to tweak it a ton and you have to get the math right. But a lot of the math is already kind of set up for most things, but it is more I guess like it is a little more difficult, but it's not more difficult than doing basic Python coding, you know, or basic C++. It's all the same. It's all the same shit. Yeah, I gotta do. Yeah, I gotta think of like, because I want to do more streams where I'm just like coding. Because I realize because I'll code offline, and I realize I should probably just code like online. Sounds retarded, but you get what I'm saying. Like, because I'm like coding, I'm like, oh, this is kind of an interesting project. And then, but like for some streams, I'm like, oh, I gotta like have it packaged as like a thing. But I'm gonna do more streams now that are like just like literally like I'm just it's like coding number one or something like that. Coding like just coding. Yeah, you can automate well you can yeah, you can automate the math. I think I know what you're saying. Yeah. Um I mean you have to figure out if it's like something super custom, you gotta just figure it out. But it's not gonna be it's like a lot of the same equations are used. Look up Spring. React Spring is really cool for learning CSS animations, even though it is a framework. But the cool thing about it is they build a lot of the fundamentals into the framework. Luke says, how do you approach getting mobile, other screen sizes to just work in CSS? Flex all you need? Yeah, flex. So like Art, this is something Art and I are going to be doing this week. So it's like, let's say I have to do, it's already kind of mobile. All right, let's set up a scenario here. So let's say I have a footer. I have like a box div. Let's say I have 3 boxes in this footer. So let's say I have search footer. Let's give it a width of 100%. Give it a background of I know it doesn't matter to me. Just let me have the color. So like for each box, by the way, remember when you have something, I didn't do it for the search form up here, but this does matter. Setting up your CSS, that's why you have to learn how the layout engine works. Setting up your, what's it called? Your CSS class declarations so that you have this parent-child relationship makes your rendering faster. If you start from the beginning doing that, it's gonna be faster. Okay, so for let's say for each of these boxes, I have like a height of like 300 pixels, width of 300 pixels, and let's say like background color, something like that. And I didn't save this file. You see, it looked like shit. But let's expand it a little. And oh, right. So let's now display flex this because the way it would actually work is let's say all these boxes, let's say on your desktop view, all these boxes are going to be like this. Like they're all like this on desktop, but on you want to have it and then you do this. And then on mobile, it's actually just switched to mobile. It looks like this and you're like, fuck, that looks like shit. I'm actually get a better mobile view. So hold on real quick. I gotta get the mobile screen. So here's a little mobile hack. not a mobile hack. This is just on pretty much every mobile site. You have this meta tag right here, where the viewport you fit the screen size. So whenever you're doing mobile, you got to do this first. I mean, 90% of you are going to have to do this first. It's not very often you don't. You have to. You'll see exactly what it does. I won't even say. I'm going to refresh and you'll see what it does. See? It set the scale. So everything was like small, almost like it was on desktop. And then when I set this initial scale 1 thing for the width, it scaled it down to the device. So you want to have this on pretty much every HTML page you have. But anyway, so I want to have this flex column on this. So this is right now flex direction row because that's the default. On mobile, I want to have a flex direction column. I'm actually going to get a media query. I sometimes forget the syntax. Not perfect. Only half perfect. So like, say for max width of like, also I don't have to use screen here, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, but I can say flex direction. Oh. Column. Here I'm having they call it a media query. So it's query. So whatever the media device is, as you see now they're stacked, but they look fucking weird, obviously, because we didn't really style it. Well, I can actually say this. I can say don't have margin on mobile for these boxes. Don't have that margin right. Put the margin right to 0, and then give the margin bottom to 25 now. So I can actually separate them on mobile. Then when I go, so now on mobile, it's flex direction column, and then we go back to the row on desktop. You see how easy that is with flex? So now I went from a thing that was horizontal to a thing that's stacked by just switching the flex direction. Because the reason why Flexbox is good is because Flexbox makes it so the parent is in control of the layout of the children. So you're controlling, so they're almost joined together with the parent. Does that make sense? Oh, it makes sense. Nice. Yeah, it's flex direction. So it's like here, flex direction, push it down. If I want to vertically align it, I remember. So I don't know if you were here when I did the aligning stuff, but it's like I know oh yeah, it looks a little weird, but like I know I have to do like it's a little, there's a spacing issue, but I know to horizontally align it, I have to use align item center here because typically on the default you're going to use justified content center, but they're opposites and they're centering it on different axes, right? When I use flex direction column, I flip the axes. So I know to horizontally align these, I have to use align item center. Does that make sense? So like, and also there's no way to really like, oh yeah, and also this screen thing, you don't really need that. And 480 is like the typical mobile thing, the typical desktop. I mean, tablet's gonna be like 768, and then everything after that's just desktop. I think some people they had 960. Some people use that for tablet. You know, if I wanted to have one that was in between, I would just keep adding these booleans. But typically, the way you do it is you actually don't even do that. You just keep kind of overriding it. You can do that. And really, these media queries can actually get intensive. So I have really huge media queries that actually make the page fairly slower. So sometimes it's actually better to use something like React and to use something like what's the responsive, React responsive. I like this a lot. I like doing a lot of mobile stuff in JavaScript. Just being totally real. because you get to isolate it a lot easier to each element rather than having a global fucking thing where I just keep adding a ton of shit to it. In general, when you're doing CSS, you don't want to have a lot of globals. That seems kind of obvious, but it's like globals don't matter that much in a lot of procedural coding, which is what you're probably doing, right? It just kind of looks bad, and if things get big, it doesn't, like, big and globals just don't scale well. But when you're in CSS environment, it's really bad. Like, it's just avoid it. You want to have the fastest possible rendering page, and the fastest way to do that is to componentize. I don't use web components. I like React or Vue for just having a componentized app. React's just so nice. React hooks, obviously, but have things componentized and make sure that you see how I'm like I'm naming everything here. Like, I'm naming things in a clean way. And I talked about this before, but this is called block element modifier. I do these two. You'll see this on websites. I do these two underscores. The block is search. Typically, it would be like, this has like, the body's like called search or something. So this is the block. And then here I have the element in the block. It's called BEM, block element modifier. So the block, you have the element, and then if I had a different type of header, I would be like header red, and then I do that. So maybe I can actually do something like this, where if I wanted to add a modifier, I could just do that, you know. So it's good to have naming conventions, but so that's a little separate though from the optimization. That's just like clean code. And also, you can do whatever function. You can do this whatever you want. Like, I don't do the strict whatever it's defined anyway, because it's just some guy's opinion. It's not like, I just like structuring it like that. But if you really want to have things optimized, keep things componentized, and make sure that you're doing some semblance of lazy loading, and also fetching per page, fetching, what's the best way to put it? So you kind of want to have a different file per section of your site, and you don't want to have like this global big file often that's just loaded up on every page, because it's super hard to, it's just, after a while it gets super hard to manage that. I really like having decentralized CSS files on a CDN that's set up like in a smart way. So look up code splitting. Code splitting is, you can do that in a way that's optimized for your components. The typical way, it isn't like that though. I've used React for a long time, became quite dependent on it. I'm thinking of trying out vanilla CSS or Tailwind now over React. You should. There's no like, because I think there's often a fear when it comes to not keeping up with technology. The fear goes away when you learn, well, when you learn how to learn. It's a separate conversation. But when you're really strong with the fundamentals, you become someone that can pick up on new things very quickly. Now, I know if there's like a React competitor, I can probably learn it in like a day or two, because I know how the web works. And there comes a point where it's like, you're not going to get around having to like do a lot of these CSS conventions in your framework. You're not going to get around a lot of the basics of HTML in a framework. So it's more so learning the language of the framework. So it's like, it's more of a like steeper climb to learn fundamentals, but in the longevity of being someone that's paid to solve problems for people, it's actually time efficient, because one, you'll have to learn things less. You won't be dependent on a framework. And because you won't be dependent on a framework, you won't have a lot of fear, and you won't be pigeonholed to only applying to certain places. How is all the fetch and lazy loading implemented? So there's actually different types of lazy loading. So like there's lazy loading that's like I mean, lazy loading is just a thing people say when they want things to load after the runtime started, typically. So like there's like the page lazy loading shit. So like where's my shit? Oh, right here. So like if I go on this page and I have a bunch of other images here under these red boxes, then I can have a lazy loading image library that only loads those images up as I scroll and as those elements get into the view. That's a concept of like lazy loading. But you can also lazy load by not until someone uses don't do any of the search stuff until I click on the search box. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of ways to do that. If you want to do lazy loading, like the image stuff, which is typically what people are talking about, which is like scrolling, which is huge for site optimization. Huge. You have to, for most sites to really be optimized, if it's a heavy content site, you're going to have to do lazy loading. You're going to have, so like you have to detect whether or not the element is in the page. So like, so you got to use the best way to do this is probably the intersection observer API. That's probably like the best thing to use, where you kind of just say, as things get into the viewport, this is just an API that you can, like, this is just an internal JavaScript API you can use for, if you want to write it custom. Like, so, I mean, you don't typically have to. There's also like this stuff Facebook does, where you go on Facebook and it's like, it's like grayed out a little bit first, or maybe you go to Twitter. I just type in WI. Also, here we get into service workers. So I don't know if you know this, but everything right there, like right here on this page, I'm lucky this is actually loading slowly. Now it's actually giving me content. But everything right where things are loading up in Twitter are actually stored in service workers. That's something that actually it's very, very common now. So you actually have most of the site already saved on your computer. It's cached, and it's just always there until they break the cache, until they override it, which would be some timestamp from when you go back to Twitter. And Twitter would be slower that time because it's not in the service worker. Service workers are these like background scripts that run when that sites will just, let me show you. Sites will just set up service workers. There's a lot of malware in I just realized, how do you look up service workers in Brave? Is it the same? How do I? Oh, I think I can go through it in the dev tools. What am I doing? Service workers are fucking interesting. And yeah, right here. Yeah, see all registrations. There's a lot of them. Oh, there's actually not that many. Wow, Brave's nice. So I can tell. So like these sites registered background scripts to be saved, cached. And you know what's interesting here? Yeah, like there's a Slack one. There's like some, like this one, like I don't even know what this is. Oh, Google user content. This is Google Colab. It has different ways it can get managed. This one's installed. It's not running right now, but it's installed. And it's when I go back to the page that I need to visit for this to get ran, then it'll initialize. But if you guys go to your dev tools and go to service worker, there's going to be more than this. This looks like 20. Did they say this is 17? If you go to your service workers right now, I bet, and you're not using Brave, it's, you know what? I shit on Brave a lot. This is really cool. I can tell that they're helping me out here. Dude, it's like, if I go to my Chrome, it's probably like 200. Just being straight, like I'd say it's 200. Have you ever heard of server-side lazy loading? Yeah. I bet that's what Next.js basically markets itself as. So Next.js does a lot of hard things for you. Yeah. So you have the server-side lazy loading. So there's a lot of what Next, the big thing Next helps out with is hydration and server-side rendering. So like the hydration is the big one. Synchronizing your client and your server when you have this heavy component framework that's loaded up in JavaScript. So like what happened was everyone used to code sites like this, and then they got fucking annoying. So people wanted to have templating, got annoying because it used to be that you can still do it now, and I like doing this often, but it's like pre all this React stuff, it was like, yeah, you either use, or like handlebars, you either use like a templating thing where you just have like everything's just a PHP like site that's just like doing a lot of logic, and then it renders down your HTML page. And then if I want to go to another state, I request the backend, so the server side re-renders the page. That's how most sites, because that's super dependable, and a lot of sites still do that. So like, but what happened recently, or the past like 5 to 10-ish years, is that mostly 5, I guess, but you have this new thing where now a lot of the logic is all on the front end, and your full app, the application logic, is built in JavaScript, and you need a JavaScript runtime. So I know you probably know this, but like, so when you run on the React site, you go to React and nothing happens, and you have the white screen because literally nothing happens. And then your JavaScript runtime runs, and then it executes a React page and it renders the page. The problem, obviously, well, there's a ton of problems. Google bots aren't good, and people want Google bots because that's how you get up in SEO. People started getting deranked in SEO because they can't be scraped. A lot of people, it's like you typically want to be scraped, right, by Google, so you can be in the search. So like, it was bad for SEO. It was also really slow, and you could still do it now, like, but most people move to things like Next.js and, well, really just custom server-side rendering, where you have a backend, typically Node. There's also a big reason why Node's important. And Bun now and all, and like having a JavaScript runtime in your backend, because you execute the React state, and you have a React on your server and on your front end. And then the React on the server gets that initial state, and then it actually renders the full page the same way it used to. And then it'll mount all the JavaScript stuff that you have on the front end. So, and then the hydration issue is what happens when I change a ton of state on the front end and the back end doesn't know that, but I still need to use the back end to get more pages. So then you have this synchronization that happens. And Next.js makes it a lot fucking better if you're using it right. Very interesting. I'll look into all this, and our CDNs related to this. Oh, dude. All right, look into I talk about CDNs. Look at the chapter on the backend for front ends video, because I talk about CDNs on that one. So like the general idea of CDNs is you want to have data closer to the user. So what happened in the past 20 something years is there's a lot of fucking users, and there's a lot of data, and there's a lot of there needs to be a lot of availability, and that data keeps changing so much for everybody. So some companies like Cloudflare and a lot of companies started creating these content delivery networks where they're like, hey, some of these companies, they just had a lot of servers because they just did for some other thing. And they're like, let's pivot into like a CDN that will host all these assets that keep getting requested closer to where the users are. So it's like you want to hit you want to upload your files to CDN. If you're a global site, like is there gonna be a guy in Bangladesh? Is there gonna be a guy over in, Russia and all that? So that's where CDNs get valuable. It's like you have a network where your content is synchronized across. So CDNs are more so related to assets. So it's like whenever someone says an asset, they're saying all this shit in the browser. So let's go. How do I? Yeah. So when I say an asset, I mean not all this shit. When I say an asset, let's refresh this page. I mean a lot of the shit that's here. A lot of these aren't. A lot of these are scripts. Well, these are all assets. These are all except for let's not look at the document. But it's like the CSS files, the files, the scripts, the fonts, not the fetch requests, but like everything that's a file that's the website is making HTTP requests for, that's going to be an asset. So like CDNs are for making assets highly available and fast across the world. That's the point of that. You want your users on low, exactly. You want your users on low ping. Exactly. You don't want some guy to have to, because like, dude, cell towers are not simple. And when it's across countries, it's even like it's in the air. It's literally in the air. And it has to, and when you're going from cell tower to cell tower over state lines, you have all these different ways of decrypting and different ways of doing handshakes. Well, it's all the same protocol, but it's like, hey, what if like Georgia kind of sucks, compared to New York? And and that's where we get into like what's more available. That's where we get into like, playing the balancing act of like what has more throughput and how can we make it so that one is available for you at this time as a highly needed or a highly important user or whatever. So the source of a global website is hosted in one place. Well, so like the way it's looked at now is it's not so much hosted in one place anymore. So like it's actually hosted everywhere. But like what happens now is really everything's in front of a CDN typically of like sites, of like big sites. The CDN isn't like all just stemming from one thing that's getting duplicated all the time. It's mostly just you upload to the CDN. Like if you get AWS and the CloudFront, it's just like you post on CloudFront, and then it's just everywhere. Yeah, it's all about experience. It's all about availability. CDNs are extremely valuable. Extremely. Any more questions about stuff? I like this. This little code and talk session. Yeah, there's you need to know about CDNs because you're eventually, if you're getting paid to code, eventually you're going to be having to deal with this, whether or not you're a front end or a back end, because there's going to be a point where your job, like this is what happens when you're front end. This is what happens. You want to know the job? This is literally I've had jobs that literally was this. So they in that one, they literally, it was like they hired Google to fucking come and say we're like retarded. But let's say I run Hacker News. I'm the front end for Hacker News. I'm not busy, but when I have to work, my boss comes and is like, "Hey, oh wow, their site's really good. Let me go to a site that's bad. Okay, let me go to what's the site? You know, Twitter probably is probably really bad. Go to like my Twitter account, Jwordy. By the way, Jwordy, like okay, so it's like terrible. So the largest contentful paint was 7.9 seconds. Other stuff's actually not that bad, but like this isn't that bad. But like the core vitals, so the contentful paint. So earlier when I was talking about layout engine, please like learn about the layout engine. You will like people will think you're like a fucking rock star when you understand, like, read the WebKit docs for real. If you want to be paid to code like front ends, like it, like you will find someone will find you and give you money because it's like the basics of what you do will be better than everyone else. So the page is first laid out. The DOM is laid out in a tree, and it's laid out, and then it's all these little things we set here is applied to everything that matches the CSS. All these attributes are applied to the layout engine. That's why I was saying this matters when you do the child, because if I see that this dot box is only matched to search footer, if I look through the tree and I already hit search footer, then I can already easily go back to search footer to apply the box. Does that make sense? Or to go to, I know that it's the box. The box is within, is a child to this parent. So the layout is really important. What happens at the layout is the painting. So the page gets painted. That's where you visually see things. That's why you need to have a browser that's like actually fast and like actually has a good painting system, because your GUI might be kind of slow by default. You know, I mean, that's not a problem anymore because all these sites are great. So what Twitter has a shitty paint. So like, and we can go to what they say here. So when you actually see stuff on the page, this is like I already explained it, but like when you already see stuff on the page, it takes like, it just took 8 seconds, and this is the largest one. So this is like the content. So like first, it did all that service workers, like it already had my cache shit. That's why all this stuff's fast, because I'm pretty sure it just used my. No, actually, it didn't have the cache stuff. So this is all that stuff's pretty good. But the performance is low on Twitter because they do so much shit to get the main content. And at your front end job, they're literally going to show you the score and they're going to be like, you suck. They'd be like, you're a fucking piece of shit. And they're going to spit on you. It sucks. And they're going to pee on you. I'm just kidding. But like, no, like this is like, they'll literally be like, yeah, we need it to be over 90. So how are you going to do that? If you go, okay, you want to actually get a front end job, go to random sites and be like, hey, I just fucking raise your performance from 33 to 90 on my private thing. And here's how I did 50% of it. Pay me for the next 50%. Because people don't like, and by the way, they tell you what to do. Like they'll be like, oh, I had a job where I had to fucking do all this JavaScript shit. This is why I know a lot about JavaScript. I think this was the times, but like, so this stuff is intense. So the JavaScript's the hardest part. The script evaluation, that's the hardest part to make more performant. That's why I know all this random JavaScript shit, is because I had to do this. So like, I was more so full stack doing this stuff, but like, so it's a whole thing. Netflix has a really good JavaScript performance tool where it actually analyzes the heap. So let's request this page right here. Oh wait, oh no, not the performance tab. So let's go to, yeah. Well, these are the requests. I want to see the oh, do I have to record it? I'm not gonna do that. Can I just get like a screenshot of it somewhere? All right, that's fine. We just record it. So this is called profiling, as you can see. Profiling, you got to know what profiling is. So like, oh, I got to refresh the page. So right now it's profiling, and I think I can stop it. I think it just taking a while. So you actually see a brick. It's complicated. I get it. I get it. But just relax. It's okay. It's complicated, but it's okay. So like, dude, there's a lot to unpack here. I'm not gonna unpack everything, but here, okay, we have a function call that took half a second. You can actually break down this function call, figure out where it was, figure out why it happened. I'm trying to actually get to the, oh, well, you can get to the call. Yeah. So you can get to the call tree of this one. I can open this up. I mean, this might take a while, but long story short, you can get to, this is the compiled code, which is why it's kind of hard to understand here. But like, you can break down each function and sort of see what was the source of and why this failed, and you'll learn a lot about your JavaScript. So you can be like, oh, like I didn't know that like fetch calls are really bad inside in constructors and classes. Yeah, I'm not saying that's true. I mean, there's a whole thing with constructors in classes that is a way of optimizing JavaScript. But like that function call, there's a good chance that it doesn't even need to be there. Just being real, like especially if you get hired by like a big site, and by the way, you can't fucking AI this. So like everyone's scared to like that your AI. Maybe I should do a stream where I'm like, I can figure out a way to do it, but this isn't like AI. Okay, so don't be like a pussy. Don't be like, oh no, AI is gonna take my job. I mostly say that as a joke. The reality is, we need people that know how to do that. You know what I'm saying? We need people that know all that shit. Hey, what's up, guys? Even the dumb question, but how can I get over the feeling of wanting to learn everything? Let's talk about it, Reed. That's a whole thing, man. Like all programming languages, all frameworks, all the shit. I know it's wrong, but the idea keeps popping in my head. The thing is you can't learn everything, but you can learn all the right things. Think less about having, because I know what you're saying. So here's the thing. So there's a lot of different types of people in the world, Reed. There's a lot of people that are lazy. There's a lot of people that don't learn anything. There's a lot of people that learn things just to get a job and they do the surface level thing. There's a lot of people that are obsessive and want to be good. They want to be great. If you're someone that has a feeling of wanting to learn everything, you're probably in that last category. You're already in like the top percentile of potential when it comes to getting good at shit because you're obsessive about it. So relax. You know what I mean? Good to see you back on. I would only add, from what I've seen since the 80s till now, things are in flux, and within 5 years, digital. You can't. Oh, just bobbing around. Hey, what's up? Yeah, dude. You can't AI a lot of this stuff. That's why like I'm never afraid of the AI shit, because it's like you can't AI mastery. It's like, dude, when you figure out like like for instance, like let's look at this profiling thing. Like obviously AI, there's a lot of patterns here. So here's what's interesting. Here's what AI is really good at. It's good at the patterns of what already happened. Okay, it's really good at that. So like when you get paid, when people pay you to problem solve, they're not really and it's like a lot of money. It's not typically for a lot of that shit. Like that's like not like it's typically there's very rarely anything I've seen ChatGPT 2 do that I've ever been paid. I mean, maybe like intern. Like I will say there's a lot of like wireframe design stuff I've done that like I think ChatGPT can get pretty good at. But like a lot of stuff is like for instance, like this function call right here. I don't know if this is important. You know what I'm saying? Let's go bottom up. You can go so like oh, there's an insert before. Okay. That's always going to be slow. But anyway, so like but I can look at yeah, I mean this whole thing is so fucking slow, but I don't know what they're doing here. They're doing a lot of shit here. But like and they have a whole call tree, but I don't know if this is important to the business. So let's say I had to optimize this automatically. Let's say I had a function that automatically that looked at JavaScript profiles and it looked at the call stack and I had the code. I might do a fucking stream about this. This isn't a bad idea. But it looks at the code and it analyzes the code with the profile here. Actually, I won't stream that. I'll sell that. And it keeps trying to optimize the function based on the pattern recognition of how things have already been optimized. That's interesting, right? Well, the only problem is, what if it doesn't actually do the same shit anymore? Like, what if you change a function that doesn't need to be changed? You know, like, what if, like, you're actually focused on a problem that doesn't matter to the company? You know, that feedback loop of figuring out what needs to get done and then you using your real world knowledge to make a decision, that's where AI doesn't help you. So that's why it's always good to be really focused on getting good. Because AI is not going to get you good. Because people always need someone who's good. You know what I mean? AI is good at patterns for what already happened. And also it's weird even saying AI. LLMs. It's not good at decisions. Humans make decisions. And you're going to get paid to make decisions. That's really what it is. Like you're paid to make high level decisions. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not paid to like they want a guy who they don't have to think about anything because you're like, yeah, I know my shit and that's it. Like they don't want to pay someone that's just going to do a lot of work. It's like who's really owning the work. Like if I right now hire a dev to work on a contract or something that I have and I subcontract to that person, I'm not going to subcontract a lot of busy work. I can do busy work. Busy work's fun in coding. It's like it's not even like if I have a lot of busy work, I'll just do it. I'll like set time away to do it. And also like if I don't do it, the amount of time that I have to educate a random contractor to do busy work is going to already take time. So what I actually want to contract away is ownership of a smaller piece. Decision making. I'm like, I want a good guy who's good that can actually make decisions. You know what I'm saying? Problem solving doesn't require coding. Directing the AI will be the future. Eventually, the AI will learn to problem solve. There are only so many problems in the universe to solve. I don't, maybe. But the problem is there has to be a human feedback loop. You're right about that, but the feedback loop has to be very human. I think there's going to be less decision makers, by the way. I'm not trying to be like too optimistic here. You're going to a lot of you guys are going to get cut. It's been real. For which part, Maliki? But yeah. No, I think there's gonna be less decision makers, 100%. Oh, is that what you're saying? Why? Oh, I think it's gonna be less decision makers because there's less compute. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Since the dawn of man, we have been removing the human feedback. Um, Interesting. I didn't think about that. That's a cool way of putting it. Yeah. Well, what I think what's really been happening is we've been having less as like we make technology, we require more information. I talked about this a little bit in the entropy stream. So as we make technology, we require more information to do tasks. But there's a lot of consequence to that. Eventually, and we're starting to see it now, people get less capable. So like, and what I mean by that is like, I mean it's entropy, but also it's so it literally happens, but also there's a reason why it happens. If I make a tool and you use the tool, the amount of information that's required to get a job done is now more. Does that make sense? It's like if I make a new type of hammer that requires like 3 steps or whatever to do, the information is in making the hammer is in these 3 steps are now added to the process. So every time someone uses that hammer, there's more information being tossed around. And whenever someone has to pass it, you kind of get what I'm saying. The more tools, the more fucking information. But and that's not bad. It's in fact it's really good. But the problem is humans can't handle all of the information. Like a one person can't. So it's like if I'm that's why like computers are awesome because we get access to so much. But the problem is I can't be the best uh carpenter and the best software engineer or whatever. Like it's impossible. You kind of get what I'm saying? Like there's so much limit to how much information we can make use of. So that's where it isn't just a line of people. I mean, the dark ages was the thing. Like we haven't just been getting better and better. There's there's a point where the people get dumb. And I think it's a little cyclical. See, we're getting cut. Oh yeah. Dude, don't get cut. Um, we want a future of less human labor and more human art. Though but why do people make art? Like, think about it. Like I think a lot of art is a struggle with the self. So, well, that's a separate thing. But like I think a lot of yourself develops through craft. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. I don't want to go on a whole thing. That's a whole conversation. Kind of unrelated, but I've noticed that GPT fails hard if you're trying to write code that writes code like macros and stuff. At least with the way LLMs work, their context is too static. Yeah, yeah. I need to play around with like so the fascinating thing about the LLMs are really good at filling in with a context it can understand. Your code base is very complex. It's more complex than you probably think. Even if you're making like an e-commerce site. Think about every single bug you had to fix, whether it was you as the manager or it was someone else as a manager. Think about the complexity of that. That means every piece of code was written once, and eventually it might have been written again, and it might have been rewritten, it might have been changed, and they might have added a test. And every single time there's been a reiteration, there has been human feedback to change it. The LLM isn't so much, I mean, with the problem you're saying, when LLM is finishing your code, it doesn't have it has the context for the last snapshot. of what happened. It doesn't have a lot of the context for the continuous human why of why your code's been iterated on so many times. So like I would say when you're using an LLM, use it with the knowledge that you have to be faster and you have to be more efficient and you have to be better. And if it's not doing that, find a way to use it to do that or don't. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have to be actually efficient, you know. So I would say like if you find that macros and stuff like that, like if you find that that's hard, then you may have to use it in a different, like you may just use it to write tests. You may just, because a lot of tests don't require, if you think about what I said, like a test itself isolated doesn't require any context. But sometimes when you're fixing a bug, you have to fix it a certain way because there's just a way of fixing bugs. You know what I mean? You can't just fix the bug. You have to fix it right. And you have to fix it not like another thing's been fixed, maybe, or like another thing. You know what I'm saying? There's so much context to a bug fix. So even though I have a video where I try to fix bugs and all that with LLMs, it's not really the best for that. The things that don't require a lot of context, I think it's great for that. Where it's something that's like already been done. Expression, we aren't 10x, Jared. You got to get 10x, dude. Like, what are you doing if you're not 10x? The funny thing is, like, I think a lot of people are going to get too scared to be in CS anymore. And there's actually going to be less 10x people. That's fucked up. There's going to be like 3 guys who held it down. And everyone else is going to be like, oh no, AI is going to take over. Dude, as soon as I saw Copilot, I was giddy. Ask my buddy, my Matt, who we had a couple streams. I was like giddy. He was like, you're insane. I was like, dude, I'm going to get paid so much money. I'm like, they're going to get rid of all the trash. I'm just kidding about that. But it's like, no, I was giddy though. I was like, dude, like this is awesome. We don't have to do shitty shit anymore. Let's see. I wish I knew about this dev tool instead of using command prompt to look like lead hacker way back. Oh, this wasn't, DevTools wasn't really around. All right, how old are you? Because for me, DevTools wasn't around when I was like a teenager, I don't think. Let me think. Maybe that's right when it came out. I think that's right when it came out. And it was not like this at all. From looking at other people's code, even before AI, elite coders are rare. Elite anything is rare. Elite anything is rare. But also like, I feel like I don't know. I don't see AI as that big of a deal. Even though I'm saying it's gonna, like, I was excited and all that, over time I've grown to kind of see it's really about problem solving, and that's it. You know, like it's just like can you solve a problem? That's it. Yeah, they only know already like what exists, which is so funny because like it's so obvious. That's why I did that. I'm gonna do a stream where I build something probably maybe tomorrow. Is tomorrow a thing? I think it is, right? I don't think Windows was a big deal when it hit. I love DOS. Yeah. Yeah, DOS. I feel like DOS is like, dude, what the fuck are you doing with DOS? You loved DOS? When I was a kid, I used to go because I was like kind of bad with all, like I was like when I was like in middle school, I would like go on these like computers, it literally just like try to put viruses on. I would like, oh, are you 25? Oh, so script kiddie a phase around 15. Yeah, okay. So that's like, so I was like 17. Yeah. 17, I think. Yeah, there's definitely dev tools back then. But it wasn't like this. Dude, dev tools is so much better now. No, but when I was a kid, I would literally like, it's kind of fucked up. I'd like go, my first, this is when I thought I was a fucking elite hacksaw. I would, and it's been, I was a child. It's been a long time, so it doesn't matter. But I'd go on, SQL injection. I would search sites that had index PHP and just join. What are you creating? I'm centering a div. Dude, I centered the div already. DJ Pressure, where have you been? DJ Pressure, where the fuck have you been? I centered this fucking div right here. How you doing, DJ Pressure? I missed you. What was I just talking about? Oh yeah, there was a dude, when I was like I would literally I'd search for sites that had index PHP and I would like try all the all these like SQL injection trick. I'd go on all these sites and try to like break. Some of it like worked and I was like, "Oh." Like I was like, "Oh shit." Huh. And I would DDoS random sites with this little like it was like some like you download like some application, it would open up a terminal and it would like why would I do this? Like I'm trying to think like what was the I'd use cheat engine on a ton of shit. Um that's why I know this stuff. Like it started when I was like 12 and I was like I'm fucking elite. I'm like I'm the best. And then I would go to like wow, what's that one hacking site where they give you different web problems to I forgot what it's called, but I go on that site and I'd try to actually do something. I was like, I don't know this at all. This is a site where you can do like exploits and stuff like that. But yeah, dude, that was that was mini fucking Jared. I would yeah. My high school had the county server rack in the closet in one of the classrooms I was in. The entire rack wasn't locked. That's all I'll say. Nice. Nice just bobbing around. No, you know what I would do? I remember going on some kids' laptops and like typing in like a random thing that I forgot what it was. It was some command line trick that would just turn their computer like it would turn their computer into something. It like did some it was like a basic like it would just make their computer red or something like that. Change the color of it. Oh, I gotta repost those videos. I don't know if you guys know, I had a YouTube. That like when I was like 12, 13. That's how I had a video. It had a lot of views. I took it down because I was like, this is fucking terrible. But it was no, it wasn't Hack the Box art. It was I know Hack the Box. It's like the main one. It's the main one. It's not Hack the Site. Ah, fuck. I forgot what it was called. But I would yeah, I would like make all these 3D animated videos and like I did this Blender, how to make a game in Blender. Dude, that's so funny. I'm like remembering now. What a weird fucking kid. What a weirdo. I was a weird fucking kid. And I remember, it's the first thing that I like liked, or the first thing that I was like, oh shit, I can do this. Like I made I I didn't even make it. I put together a ton of like a calculator and a text editor and some like random bullshit like into it was I think it was VB script. No, I think it was Visual C++, and I called it the homework engine. And I was like going to kids at school, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna sell this for millions. I was like, hey, you guys, so, and by the way, I'm like 14 or like, I don't even, and I'm like, so you guys, you know how you guys are going to school? I made a calculator and I'm going to sell it for $5 billion. You guys are fucking idiots. But like I genuinely thought I was like a fucking genius. No, yeah, I mean, obviously I'm still weird. I just had a video where dude, this is a super in-depth video on how to, I just realized I talk about how to center a div in the first like 20, dude, it's actually way too in-depth. Why do I do that? I wanted to just show you how to center a fucking div. And then I'm talking about, like, I was talking about the box model. I was talking about like cdns. Dude, go to the beginning of the video. I tell you how to center a div. I say how to center the div. I talk about flex. Now we're talking about childhood shit. That's how life is sometimes. You're like, I just want to do the simple thing. And then you're married with kids. Too real. It's so funny. Like, dude, I would like, yeah, I was so bad when it comes to being a hacksaw. My hacksaw days have left me with the knowledge of a security plus certificate. So, oh yeah, if there's any certificate to get, if you want to be like an actual like real fucking hacksaw, it's called the School of Hard Knocks. It's interesting. Actually, you can go to a site called justfuckinglearnit.com. Just kidding. No, it's just funny because like I remember this one dude recently was like, he was like saying something about like his what certificates to get. And I'm like, dude, you're like so far. I'm like, dude, you need to like learn everything right now. Certificate? Dude, Google. I should have just fucking sent him a link to google.com. I'll get into cybersecurity at some point if the industry does it. Oh, dude. All right, get into cyber. If you want to get into cybersecurity, now's the time. Your view on SaaS AI product. It's just those are just 3 words. Well, I guess SaaS is 4 words. So that's 6 words. AI is 2 words. So that's actually 7 words. That's what I think. No, I think so like a SaaS AI. So this is idea right now, there's wrapper companies. So like right now, people are just having an API and they're selling it for money. And for some people, they're making money. Some people, they're not making money. Software, a SaaS is just you're selling software as a service. They pay you some fee on a timely basis, and then you use the software. If it's AI, if it isn't, why does that matter? You said product, so it's like it has to make money. The people that are going to succeed in the next few years when selling software are people who know how to make money. That's it. Rust versus Node for backend. I have a whole dude. Check out my backend for front end video. It's a whole thing. So that's a lot to unpack there. In general, you don't need Rust for backend. The tooling isn't really there for you to do it well. Just being, I mean, you can do it. Let me correct that. To do it well at scale, the tooling and the people aren't there. It's ideal, I think. Rust is great. I was playing around with Rust the other day and I was like, oh, so like I don't have to like manually return my memory. Like I don't have to. Isn't Rust multi-threaded or low-level control? Yeah. You can do multi-threading in Go, Java. You can kind of do it in Python. I know there's a lot of opinions around that, but for most of what people want in multi-threading, you can do it in Python. Multi-processing. But like the low level control, you got to think when we say backend, what are we really saying? Because most of what people need for backend, by the way, I'm not saying Node's better. I'm just saying there's drawbacks. And I pushed Rust a lot on the stream, but it's like you have to be practical too. What do you need to build? Like literally. Because if you need to build, like let's say you need to build a website that's like has a checkout and a cart, you know, it has like you probably need object oriented programming for that if you want to do it fast. So now we're just talking about in the application layer. It's like, so you need to be able to write coherently. I would say Rust is going to be fine for that. But like, if you think about the processing, like yeah, obviously it's cleaner writing a checkout system in Node. I think most people would agree with that. Even some Rust people would agree with that. The part where Rust would maybe benefit is if you have like a ton of people doing database writes, and you have to do multi-threading at such a low level to the point where it's like per request, and you have to make it so memory efficient on your small little computer because you didn't get big AWS machines or whatever you're scaling on. If you want to make the most out of a single machine, and you need to be as memory efficient as possible, then use Rust, definitely. But for like you don't need that for a fucking checkout. Just you won't. If you're making a cornhub.com competitor, probably, because you're gonna like I'd say Rust is better if like a ton of dudes are gonna jack to your site and you need that high throughput. Is good for low latency too. What do you mean Rust is good for low latency? Define what that means. Because not really. I mean, it's the same payload. Do you mean for processing? Because it's also like Node's really good. I said this time and time again. Node is really good for concurrency, for high CPU cycle concurrency. I'll say that. Let me. But it's terrible at processing anything meaningful. It just is. What I mean is like typically if you need to, like, let's say you have a backend endpoint that needs to hit an API that's internal, so it's quick. It's never not going to be quick. You need to do a database write. You need to do a database read, and there's no locking whatsoever. Like, why would you not use Node for that? Like, I don't even understand. Like, there's nothing happening. Like building stock trading sites. Oh, you mean just like things with a lot of, okay. So like, I wouldn't say, no, I wouldn't build a stock. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. You probably want to use Rust for that. If you're being that, yeah. Is yeah, exactly. Yeah, Rust is the lowest runtime for virtual threads. So if you need to be very memory efficient with threads, then I suggest Rust. Yeah, if you're like, I don't know what you mean by stock trading. Like if you have like a hedge fund and if you guys gotta process stuff as quick as possible, I would suggest Rust. But if you mean like a lot of people going to a stock trading site, I don't know. No. If you need to, and by the way, here's where people get it wrong because they're like, oh, But what if I have to process a lot of like math? What if I have to do a lot of compute in Node? Don't. Like you can. It's so funny. I'm like pushing Node here. I don't even mean to push Node, but it's like people will learn Rust to build backends. You don't need to do that. Learn Go. It's way better for right now for backends. But you don't have to do your processing in Node. Like you can have a front end server be Node. I think Node's ideal. Bun, I guess, is ideal for a front end server. Like you really don't need. I like to look at it like this. Learn Java. Like Java is way better as a backend language than Rust. There's just not. It's so specific why you would need Rust. Like like I said, like if you're a hedge fund and you guys need to process stuff so quick, yeah, you probably want. I mean process. I don't mean the network. The networking, right? There's no benefit, in my opinion, to the networking with Rust. That makes sense. Like there's no like there's just I just can't imagine like yeah, there's it's so optimized at this point. Like things like Node are you just scale differently. That's the thing with Node is that you have to scale differently. You don't use it as a like do business logic. Don't do anything more than that. If you have to process like I don't know, like if someone had a Python versus Java versus Node.js versus Go for a first backend, dude, learn a first backend language. Learn Go. Yeah, learn Go. The only reason why I don't say Java, Reed, sorry, is because um it's just not gonna it's gonna get phased out. Just being real. You fucking Java guys are gonna be dead in like 5 years. Um but yeah, Go, I would say definitely Go. I had this interview once where I had to make this like and I didn't use Go, but it was a Go interview and I had to make like a chat server. And dude, it was great. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, this solves a lot of concurrency issues. By the way, I'm not saying Node's better than Go for concurrency at all. What I mean is, so like the scaling's different. Because you understand, Node's single threaded. It's meant to be single threaded. And what people say like Node's slow, it is mostly because if you're gonna scale with threading, you're gonna have other multiple node processes. But like, just don't do that. You don't really need to do that actually. For what Node's meant for. And you can have so like what I would say is you never really need to scale node processes, but you can have like 4 node front end servers and you can just use them like on the server and you can round robin each of them or something. And then the problem with Node is you just like have to know your CPU architecture. That's really and be like really that's the real one main problem with it. Because you just have to have it scale with your I don't really think so. Java's not that old language you guys think of. Companies from FANG to banks, startups all use Java. Banks do. FANG they typically use variants of Java. I don't know any. Oh, Amazon uses, but I thought they had their own version of it. Yeah, Amazon uses Java, and I don't even know what Netflix does. I mean, yeah, you can use Java. I just don't think it's. I think there's going to be so much Python work that a lot of Python's going to eat Java, in my opinion, and Go. Um, yeah, Go just because so many startups in the past 5 years started using Go that it's going to take time for it to eat at Java. Python, Python's going to take over a lot of shit. There's just too many people learning Python. Really, Netflix's whole backend is vanilla Java. Wow, it's Spring. I didn't know that. I knew a guy that programmed Java for a bank over 3 years ago now. He didn't know that he didn't know the pointers are a thing. Well, yeah, he's a Java guy. You don't have to know pointers are a thing. I mean, you do need to know pointers are a thing. You don't need to know it here's the thing about pointers. You need to know it at the system level. You don't even really need to know it at the application level. It's really useful at the application level, obviously, but like you need to know it at the system level because it's just how memory works. Yeah, like Microsoft's products almost all use Java eventually. They have yeah, but dude, like I don't know. I just seen so many people move away from it at this point. Maybe you could be right. I've just seen so many newer businesses use it. Like you're right that like a lot of businesses do use Java. I just think I've just seen so many people build with Go and Python that I'm just like I it has to affect Java. You might be right though. Um After Web3 and AI, what's next? Boom. Um well, that's a whole conversation, Sulab. Dude, you're asking the wrong. I'm gonna say I have controversial opinions. Um, I don't know a ton about Go. I know enough that it's awesome, but I know like a ton of people use it. Yeah, I've only used Go for like that interview pretty much, and I got it, which is nice. I didn't want to take the job. I didn't want to because it was in, dude. That job was $2,600 a month. I was like, "Are you fucking No, it was like yeah, it wasn't over 3,000. It was in euros. It was like a European company. I've just seen so many people build and go. But yeah, so yeah, what's the next boom? I mean, there's a lot to say about the next boom. Me and my friends are talking about that. My opinion, so one, I think in general. So here, let's talk about the macros. Let's talk about macro economics here. Or not even just macro. Let's talk about the shifts politically. So I think we're going to move from west to east a lot when it comes to the economy and energy. So let's use this as a given. I think, hey, America, we're doing all right, but I don't want to get too political, but I think the West is gonna have a bit of a struggle, mostly because of energy and natural resources and our inability to keep it inside, and there's going to be or internal, and there's going to be a huge destructuring of the service economy, which we're going to see with AI. um and I think because of that, you're going to have a ton of things get local. It would be a good industry. I don't know the next boom, but I would say if you get really good at data, some way, if you can get good at data warehousing, I'm not saying that a boom, but like that's really good. And also good at setting up local networks. That's smart. And that's just my opinion. I'm not trying to be a doomer. Hey, America, we're always crushing it. But like, hey, if our entire economy is based on service industry and we're about to fucking see that implode, weed farms in the future? No. Weed isn't that it's no, dude, the farms in general are the future. If there's too many weed farms, people will be too high and they won't be productive. Um, Europe's salaries are a fucking joke compared to US and Canada. Yeah, dude, it actually blew my mind. I was like, 'cause this was like a good job there. I was like, I thought this was like, and I looked at it and that was like, they were like, yeah, this is like a competitive salary. I'm like, this is like less than a teacher makes here. I was like, so like, what the fuck? Like, I was just like, I was like, what? Like, how am I supposed to move there? Like, they're like, oh, we'll like help you out with it. And I was like, that's nice, but I mean, I could just go to and work in New York. Like, why would I? Dude, Europe. I don't know what's going on there in the tech industry. Oh, you know the future. Yeah, people are way too high. No. You know what I think? If you want to invest in skill sets, math, vector calculus, vector calc, yeah, and physics. Um, just forget about tooling. It's not a find a tool that you like, Python, whatever, C. Find a tool, whatever. The average salary of an AI consultant, dude, that's not a thing. There's no like you can't do an average salary of a job that doesn't really exist yet. Like it's not there. It hasn't even been a year yet. How am I supposed to know how much an AI consultant or an LLM AI consultant earn per year? I don't mean just AI because like that's been a thing, but you said LLM, dude. I mean, it depends on like who you are and what you're doing. If you're like hired to be a prompt engineer, probably $5 an hour. I'm really what would I spend on a prompt engineer? What would I spend on? So is there a prompt engineer salary? Is there a prompt engineer salary? Let's see. Is that a thing? Dude, there's no way they make $300,000. That's like, yeah, the West is done. Prompt engineering is where are these numbers coming from? I would believe 59,000. Dude, for prompt engineer, I would pay $7 for someone to do prompt engineering. And I think that's fair. I didn't say I wouldn't pay anything, by the way. I would pay $7. Yeah, American. I'd pay $7. And I don't mean an hour. I would pay seven whole dollars for the whole thing. Like, what the fuck is a prompt? You guys seen me do prompt engineering. That's not a job. That's all right. So, but AI consultant. So, like, let's not look at AI consultant. Let's look at a software consultant. Software consultant. Actually, let me break down how you make money as a software consultant. This is what I do now. This is what I gotta go to Sketchpad. Dude, Sketchpad is my love. Love Sketchpad. Okay. It's like such a basic fucking site that isn't even good. And I'm like, oh, I love this site. All right. So let's see. How much can you make as a software consultant? Software consultant. How much can you make as a software consultant? Money problem. Not a problem, but let's figure out the money problem. So you're a guy. You're a fucking guy. Okay. You have a long ass body and you're like a wide-eyed, you're a wide-eyed software engineer. You're happy as fuck. You just like you got a fucking top hat on. I know I'm functionally retarded, so why am I here? No, okay. So you're a software consultant, right? So you're like, I learned to code. Now I need to make money to feed Elga. My love. That's you, right? So I don't know why I made him like fucking Fiddler on the Roof. All right, so let's imagine you're this software consultant guy. So what do you? Let's say like here's what you know. So because anyone can do this, by the way, you just need to do positioning. What you know. Let's say you know Python, Java. Let's say you know front end. Let's say you know HTML, CSS, and like one framework, right? So you can do front end shit. Let's say you know one back end framework. You know Django. Okay, let's say this is your current skill set. That's enough. That's enough to start a consultancy. What does a consultant do? So a consultant come in and take ownership over products. Okay? That's what you do. So they want the consultant to come in to take ownership over the product because they either can't build it or they want a fall guy. They want someone to blame. So you can be actually let's do this is a consultant or a contract. Contractors are different. Contractors just build shit. The consultant takes ownership. Two different things. So does this make sense? Are we getting it? Are we getting it? Are you from the Bay Area? No. I'm straight. So besides America and China, what countries are you betting on for the tech innovation in the future? That's a good fucking question. Eastern Europe, probably. What's Estonia is pretty good. That's such a good question. It's not. It might still be. It's a lot of it's going to be America and China. Just being honest, I don't think that's changing much. It's just too much. There's too many people in America and China right now. Maybe Dubai, just because there's a lot of like wealth going there. A lot of young people are going to Dubai, but like there's just too much. There's too many universities. There's just too much in America and China right now. I wouldn't know much outside that. But like, okay, so you want to make money. So how do you actually make money as this fucking guy with this fucking top hat? So like, how to make money. First, learn your rate. So you have to like fucking if you want to make money as a software consultant contractor, you want to have people pay you. You have to get a rate. 2, get an LLC. I'll talk to you why you need the rate in a sec. The LLC is obvious. You have to get a business. You have to make sure the taxes aren't coming through you as a sole proprietorship, so you don't get fucked in the A. So you have to learn your rate. The reason why, all right, so set up products and project. What's the best way to put this? Project offers. You know what? Get your sale. Know your sale. So you have to get your rate. You have to get your LLC. You get your LLC whenever you want. You have to know your sale. So you have to like have a way of pitching yourself as a fucking guy. You know what I mean? You have to like pitch yourself. You're like, hey, I'm a guy who does a thing, right? You have to actually have a package. Get a client list. Manage a client list. So get like a little Excel sheet where you have all your clients, and then you know each client, you know the contact, you know the lead, you know the rate you have for the company. So here's where the rate comes into play. So like because this is gonna happen to you guys soon. Someone's gonna come up to you and they're gonna be like, this is a high quality fucking entertainment right now. I got super chats here, by the way. You don't have to fucking do that. But like, someone's gonna come up to you and they're gonna be like, hey, I want a fucking fork site. Okay. I want a site where I sell forks. How are you gonna build? So, like, how are you gonna address that? So I have no more space. All right. So some guy's gonna be like, I have a fork site. Here are the features. What do I do? And if you didn't give you the features, you ask the features. What you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to write a product plan and a tech spec. If you already have a product plan, that's great. There probably won't. You have to say what technologies you will need to build this fucking thing. You'll be like, hey, I need Sketchpad. I need a guy who knows how to fucking do sketch. No. So the reason why you need this is because you need to document your, like, everything that's going to get built. And then you need to pick, this is what I like to do, is you have to pick your milestones based on these documents. And you use the documents as reference, and then you're going to now make a proposal for how you're going to do this, right? And then you have milestones for when you're going to crush it and finish it. And the reason why you do the milestones is these milestones are based on the hours each feature will take you times your rate. So, are defined. Well, the milestones are defined. There's a lot to say here. The milestones are at presentable points of the project. So you want to have a milestone. You want to have a milestone to be, they're like presentable points of the project. So it's like, at this point of the project, I know I can show something. Boom, boom, boom. 4 milestones where I know I can show 4 things. You define, because you want to build them. They're going to be like, what's the fucking rate? Like, how much is it going to take to build this? You want to calculate your rate by how long it's going to take you for each section times 20%. Because you need to have that room for your and some people do 30%. You can do 20 to 30, but you multiply by 30% of your rate. And then you can also, hey, you don't have to make it exactly this, because maybe it's like, I don't know, 15K for the first milestone or something. And it's like, I don't know, this is a new project and you don't know the guy. So maybe you cut the first milestone by like 50% to give the guy like a good to feel good about the project. He's like, okay, like, or maybe you skip the first milestone. You don't have to do that. I'll sometimes do stuff like that just to make people feel comfortable. And if I'm not like stressing over money or something like that, and if I know I can just hit it, but you need to have a way of because of where people get confused because they can't do product planning. You have to size up each portion. You have to milestone it based on presentable shit. You have to size up each portion for how actually long it'll take you to build these things. You have to know yourself. So you have to know how long it's going to take for you to do it. Does that make sense? So when you're asking me, like, so that's my answer for how much does an AI consultant earn per year? Because it's like, I can't really tell you that. There's AI consultants that have different products. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I hope you understand what I'm saying here. It's like I can't, like, there's USA. Hey, what's up, Nitro? But it's like, you can't, like, everyone does different things. All right. Do you tell about average rate? Is 150 an hour too high? It's not too high. It depends on what you're doing. If you're really good, it's fine. The more of an establishment. That's why it's good to get an LLC and to scale, because when you have an establishment, it's often good to, 150 is fine, right? Because also it's like you might have a subcontractor, you might have, it depends. It depends on your situation. It depends on also the contract. It's like some startups just will never be able to pay 150 for the type of work you need, so they may want to pay you more like an employee, which is going to be like, I mean, it depends on what you're doing, but it's probably going to be like 75 to 100, depending on if you're like 1 to 3 years of experience. So, but if you're like 5+, 10+ years of experience, yeah, it'll probably be it might be 200, it might be fucking 250. I don't know. I mean, it depends on your situation. Do you have any experience or thoughts in low code, no code? Maybe I've become a boomer, but I feel way more confused building an app using a web UI than viewing the code repo. A lot of people, by the way, here's the one interesting thing about low code, and I'm actually in a new contract I'm getting now. There's this discussion around the no code stuff, and it's like I haven't found anyone that wants to do that in industry. I've at like a level where you're like really building a and by the way, Dreamweaver and shit like that has existed for a while, right? There's been no code for a while. People really don't like that for like when they're trying to do something fairly big. Because it's typically really hard to hire for low no code, and like who's going to be managing that? Who can you really hire to manage low code or no code? So it has to be really good system. The best, like for web, you'll have stuff like Square and Shopify and shit, and WordPress is like the one I did contracting for like years ago. But like WordPress is like, you could say a lot of it's no code, right? But it's like when you hire a WordPress developer, you're hiring a coder. You know what I mean? So it's like it's super hard to hire for that. And then people they want to have real things that could be maintained, because that's how because they want IP. And IP is how you make money. Your thought on open source contribution to become 10x programmer? Open source contribution to become 10x programmer. Yeah. You get good by just building and doing what you want. So if it's like, if you see a problem on Firefox and you want to fix it, you got to do it. So whatever you want to do is the 10x shit. And you do that stuff enough, eventually you're fucking 20x. All right. It is good for, Cookie, you're right. It is good for resume and to get feedback. All right, guys. Anyone post in the Discord. I'm gonna be online, but I'm gonna go get something to eat. Yeah, if you have any questions, definitely post in the Discord. All right. I'll see you. This was a fun one. Centering a div is a fucking challenge. No, centering a div is actually easy. All right. I'll see you.